So that would lead me toward Va most likely, just because the W is mildly more flexible than the V would be.
Yeah. Sorry, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties, audio-wise, board-wise. We're trying to get everything reset and up and running. I promise we were up an hour before the stream and last night testing it, and everything was fine, and everything not looking fine right now. We'll get it all fixed for you as soon as we can. And VAW does indeed look to be the opening. I think this is right. This is standard. I'm honestly a little surprised that Charles took 2 minutes to make this play because VA just made a lot of sense for him. So Va, 18 for Charles, and Bradley wasting no time hitting back. He's got the J on his rack, ACJ, OORV, and he's going to be able to stack back quickly. Just JO, the option for him. Brad opting for some board control, keeping things tight. And we'll see what Charles is able to draw into that BESW leave. Looks like an A, an E, and a P. Is that correct?
Yeah, looks right to me.
All right. Well, then that's going to give some great opportunities for Charles beneath. He can put either the B or the E behind JO and use that S to cash in some major points beneath these plays. He's got a lot of good options there. He's going to take some time here, I think, and figure out the best one for him.
There's also the potential to do something like web to the right, forming jaw and O, giving the AEPS sleeve, which is balanced and capable of scoring.
Yeah. Scrabble is for those who are less familiar, just tuning in for this national championship and kind of unfamiliar with Scrabble. You're playing two games at once. You're trying to score as many points as you can right now, but also you need to think about the letters you keep behind for next turn. And so AEPS as a leave, as Mike points out, is a really stellar leave. It's one that's going to draw a lot of 7-letter and 8-letter bingos next turn. And it looks like this is what Charles is opting to do here. You'd seen him set up the nice 6-letter Pesewa, Pesewa, which played for 45, making JOE and VAWS. He's bypassing 16 points, scoring just 29 to do this. But that shows how confident he is in the synergy of the letters AEPS and the power of the S hook that he set up with webs. I like this decision from Charles. It's hard to leave that many points on the table, especially when you get to play a cool word on stream. But it's the decision for Charles, and I like it. What say you, Mike?
It looks right to me. It's the sort of thing where a computer simulation might say that it's 1 or 2 points better, but it's not accounting for he's setting up multiple S hooks, hooking not only web but jaw, and so leaving that flexibility to have multiple places to play the play you hopefully draw next turn. Seems to be
setting up the S in 2 places. Yeah, this looks to be the Collins 4-letter DOCO, which Quackle put as Brad's best option here. So Brad wasting very little time to make what seems to be his most solid play. And we pass back over to Charles, who looks like he's found vowels, AEEIPSU. We were talking about the power of the AEPS leave. Well, very few leaves are powerful if you're going to draw 3 vowels and no consonants into them.
Right.
A rough swing of events for Charles, who now trails by just 1 point, 47 to 48. Collins does allow him to bail out of this rack. AUE and JOE is 15. And if AEPS is powerful, then EIPS must also be pretty powerful. So I think that's the play here. Is there something else you're noticing or thinking of in this instance, Mike?
Nothing's jumping out to me other than that we wish there were a P open for eupepsia, but
ooh, wow, yeah, that would be awesome, eupepsia, and that's what I can define as a pharmacist myself. But I think another option we might see Charles think about here is just CUE for 10. That holds AEIPS, which I think bingo's a little bit more often than just EIPS. But it scores fewer points. It's 10 instead of 15 for AUE. And I don't know, holding 3 vowels and 2 consonants is something I absolutely despise doing. Some other players are more willing to roll the dice. Looks like Charles is not. AUE is indeed the play. We've seen a series of pretty standard moves so far, just small intermediate plays as these players try to bring their racks into bingo prone range eventually. Though it looks like Charles drawing vowels, Bradley now drawing consonants. Nobody wants to bingo here in South Bend so far. We'll get one by the end of the game, I bet.
Yeah, I would be shocked if we did not, but stranger things have happened. With Brad's rack here, the options do not look particularly appetizing. Something like Varna through the A for 16 would still leave 2 R's on the rack, which does not look. Which is.
Yeah, this
As I
is
said,
a rough turn. DURR and Dowd, DOWED, is 15, and that seems to be the only good play that undoubles the R. You could also play NURR in the same spot if you're looking to keep more scoring tiles, but DURR, or as Mike said, Varna, or its anagrams Navar, or the Collins only Varan, VARAN, only appetizing options for Brad, and that's not a really appetizing option. It's just something you kind of have to hold your nose and do. But when you draw garbage, you got to play off those garbage tiles. And I expect DURR is what Brad's setting up here, though he's continuing to scramble these letters around, trying to find some other opportunity for him on this board.
I mean, I suppose radar is an option if you don't mind holding on to the V for an extra turn.
Yeah, radar another option. That'll do it as well if you really, really want to untriple these R's and play 2 of them at once. These intermediate turns are so difficult in Scrabble. There are no plays available to Brad that score more than 18 points on this turn. And the first thing a player has to do in these situations is slowly take inventory and realize, wait, is 18 all I got? If that's all I got, is it even worth making a play in this situation? And then you have to choose between a bunch of intermediate options. These are tricky turns for Brad, but I think DURR, hold your nose and get to the next turn, is probably the thing to do here. I will point out that DURR does take a big back hook, takes a back A, so he would be setting himself up there as well. That's something to consider.
Yeah, all things considered, Dur looks like the play. Let's see what Brad decides to do here.
These are turns where I take extra time, especially when I'm on stream as well. Like I've got to find something else to do, and he's going to opt to score just a little bit more points on this turn, playing through the A instead. So that'll be 16 for Brad, put him back ahead by 2. And once again, a yucky rack on Charles's end. Somebody will bingo at some point in this game. I'm sure of it. Just not yet. EEGIIPS, the rack for Charles. He needs to decide now, does he play long or does he continue on this fishing expedition that he's gone on? He's been playing small. Each of his last 2 turns, web and then AUE. He has the option to play GIE again, those 3 tiles in a number of different places to try to hold EIPS and stay in bingo range, or he can just say, forget it. I'm going to score a bunch of points right now. PEISE and Navar's is 27. PEG stacking next to Navar is 22 and sets up his S. So he's got to decide, am I scoring points now or am I trying to bingo again next turn and foregoing points to do so? This has been a really challenging game for Charles's perspective in terms of trying to steer the ship in the right direction. And this is another challenging turn. Anything jumping out to you immediately, Mike?
Yeah, I'd be looking for a place for GIE just because those are the 3 worst tiles on the rack. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a super obvious. You mentioned a spot that plays those tiles, but doesn't do a whole lot else.
Yeah, there's BOGIE, extending that BO out with GIE, or just playing GIE and GO next to DACO, which just seems absolutely crazy to do. BOGIE is, I think, the fishing option here, and it sets up some nice floaters as well to try to bingo through. So if you're looking to bingo next turn, that's the play, but it's hard to swallow a score in just 8 points, especially in CSW play.
Mm-hmm.
So Charles.
He's going with Sipe, which is a similar idea, but scores a few more points, getting 16 instead of 8 at the cost of keeping the G instead of the P, which, you know, some people may be looking at this and saying, well, if you draw the N, you have the ing ending, which can be powerful. The trouble is that if you don't draw the G, then you're not going. If you don't draw the N, then the G is not a useful tile, and it looks like the play's being challenged as well.
Yes. So the other problem with CIPE is that it is not a word. And so this is why it didn't come up in our options of things to consider. This is odd. I know Charles has been putting in quite a bit of work, time on Aerolit studying. But hey, everybody is human in Scrabble, save that Nigel Richards guy. Everybody makes mistakes. This is an uncharacteristic mistake for somebody as good as Charles. You don't usually see phony 4-letter words from top experts like him. But again, everybody's human. Lots of travel delays yesterday. It's the first game of a long tournament. So the phony going to get knocked off. Great challenge there by Brad. Trust your gut. If you've never seen anything before, throw the challenge at it. And Brad's going to pick up a free turn here. He stays up by 2 points, 62 to 64.
Yeah, and to be fair, also is Brad's going to play Mard down in the corner to score some points and clean up all of the duplicates on his rack.
Yeah, Mard, a great play here. And this is going to give Charles that spot to play the tiles GIE, as GIED now plays for 18. So Charles went from a very difficult decision to one that I think is going to be very easy here. Just play GIED and try to get out of these sticks as soon as you can. There you go.
But he started to play Pi to parallel until he realized something that my dear friend Jesse Day did not realize a few years ago, is that IR is not a word.
Yes, IR, and he realizes what he almost did, picked it back up. Good thing you didn't rush that turn and hit your clock, Charles. That would have been devastating. So yeah, PIE looks like what he wants to play. That would have been really awesome. It sets up the front hook spar and make his S even more powerful, but alas, it's not going to work. And now that he's exposed the P, I think he might play PIED instead of GIED just to avoid giving Brad some partial information. But either one of those plays, PIED or GIED, makes a lot of sense here for Charles. I do just want to go ahead and say right now, for those of you tuning in, this is the first day of a 5-day tournament, and I am going to be spoiling plays in the commentator booth often. If there's a nice bingo or a wonderful puzzle, I'll certainly softball those up and try not to spoil them, but I do call out a lot of the plays to do more of a focus on discussing the tactical merit and what the players are likely thinking. If you don't like that, if you like using these streams as puzzles, then consider muting me or pausing every time we get to, when I say something like, ooh, there's a bingo here, and I won't spoil it yet. Do what you want with these streams, but I do just want to give the warning. And here comes a bingo. Finally, looks like we got one here in South Bend. The 8-letter ground in through the O in DACO for Brad is going to put him ahead by a healthy margin, 168 to 83. And a big pull here for Charles.
Yeah, this is this is the end that the G has been searching for, and he draws one of his own.
Yes, the N floated, another one on his rack, and he's got a hard decision. Lendings fits through that N, but it's so difficult to remember which of those words that end in ing can be gerundized, turned into a noun, and take the S behind it. He's got to pull the trigger on lendings if he's sure, but he's got sledding that plays through the D. That's a word he's 100% on. Sledding is 74, lendings is 80. So you've got to be very confident on this word if you play it. And it looks like Charles is. Lendings coming down for him. Nice job.
So now that both players have bingoed, the score's back even. The next pair of draws, and Brad apparently has this play on hold as well.
Oh yeah, this play on hold too. So this is a CSW division of this tournament, which means that we are playing 5-point challenge. Bradley can challenge, and if lendings is in fact good, he will not lose his turn like in double challenge. Charles will just get an additional 5 points for the play, which would make this a tie game. But if you're Brad here, you almost want this to stay on, as that S gives him QUOIFS, which is 76 points. So it's like, I might just let the bingo stay, unload these terrible dials, and score 76. But Brad's going to pull the trigger on this, challenge it. We know that it's going to come back green, and we'll have a tie game for just a few seconds before Brad cashes in a mammoth score with his Q.
Yeah, and it's it's kind of a win-win for him. If it stays on the board, he gets to play quoifs. If it doesn't stay on the board, he gets to play something to take out the triple, and possibly, if he wanted to, play something that takes out many, if not all, of Charles's bingo options. But he gets the news that it is in fact a word.
Yep. So it comes back green. That'll make it 168 to 168. But yeah, Brad would have been in a great position. If this did come off, he would be able to figure out which bingos Charles actually does threaten. I believe it was just sledding. So Brad would not have to challenge, or Brad would not have to take out the N, because he would know there's no options. He'd just have to block the D. I don't know. Anyway, here's where we are. Brad's turn, exposed S, the triple letter score. QUOITS is the NWL play here, but QUOIFS, a standout option in CSW. And kind of surprised we haven't seen it come down yet. Here it is. Quaffs. Just get your paperwork in order first.
And Charles appears to have continued his, recent trend of drawing a bunch of vowels.
Yeah, oh my God, that is a terrible post bingo draw. So, I mean, a lot of the time, Scrabble comes down to those draws that you have no control over. Those post bingo draws, you can't groom a rack if you've played all 7 of your tiles. You can't keep a good leaf. And we see out of Brad's post bingo draw, he scores 76. And out of Charles's, he scores a very sad amount this turn. He can actually score 24 points by plunking just 2 tiles down. The play of ECO through the E in Daco, making Weber and OU is 24, but that holds AAEIT. It does a lot of the things you want. It just kind of keeps the board in its current shape. There are several bingo lines available. You'd like to try to open things up if you're Charles, because you've got a deficit. But I think at this point, with the rack this bad, you can't make an opening until you're ready to pounce. Opening the board and holding a lead like AEIOT or AAEIT, I think you're just asking to lose. So Eco, keep things tight, score some points. Kind of like this plan of approach for Charles. Well, what would you do if you were in this situation, Mike?
Let's see. I'd be looking. Yeah, like you say, all of the options are bad. It's about finding the least bad idea. That there's a line from the movie Argo that I like to quote, that this is the best bad idea we have. And I saw something like maybe agita through the G of Grounden, which EOO is not appetizing, but 18 points is fine in this situation. If there were some way to use the QI hook to take out that triple, I'd be wanting to do that, but it doesn't look like there's a good way of doing so. I might consider an exchange if I didn't see Eco, but I think Eco is the begrudging play.
Yeah, I think Eco just a little bit too strong to pass up. 24 points, and you do bingo next turn sometimes if you pick up two consonants. I think one thing that works to Charles's advantage, Eco is a tough play to spot, but his second best option probably is COO. And once you look at that spot, you might notice, oh, I can sneak that E and make the 5-letter Weber as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough play, but one that I'd expect Charles to find enough of the time, especially given his other options are in exactly the same quadrant. I do like the idea of Agita as well, AGITA, through the G and ground in. The WOs is never fun to keep, but you got to keep some scoring pressure on. You can't let Brad just score 30 next turn and win this game by running away from you. So a tough turn for Charles here. He's wisely taking his time on this one, but Eco, the play he needs to spot here. This game's far but over, even though Charles is down by a healthy amount. There are still both blanks unseen to him, so he knows he can reach in, grab one or both, and make a big play. We see at home that one of them is on Brad's rack, but still one of them available for Charles. And it looks like we're going to see Oat come down. OAT. So that's a good way to keep some scoring pressure on and get some life over on the left side of the board. So now you can bingo on the left or on the right. Always a good idea to have a number of different lines and a number of different quadrants of the board so your opponent can't knock everything out at once. So Charles doing a nice job shaping the board to try to give himself life long term in this game. And Brad's going to be put into a bind after this play. He has no vowels, BHLSTY blank, and has to figure out what, if anything, he should do about this new opening on the board, and what, if anything, he should do about this rack. BY and YO next to the O and oat is a play that makes some sense. It doesn't give back a ton, as you can only front hook that B with an A or an O. But if you draw two more consonants, you're in big trouble again next turn. This is a really hard turn for Brad once again, and he needs to slow down and really think this one through.
Yeah,
Yikes!
This is one of those where you wish where this is the sort of rack that would actually be probably pretty decent on a more open board where there were a lot of scoring options. This board is to use a term popularized by Kenji Matsumoto. This is a board with a very high entropy board where it's kind of bingo or bust. And neither player is really drawing much in the way of bingos, so you're not seeing a whole lot of scoring either.
Yeah, bingo or bust, save one big spot. The triple word beneath QUOIFS could yield some mammoth plays if you have exactly the right combination, such as ITH. And look at that, TH on Brad's rack with 6 eyes left in the bag. That spot is scary. You'd hate to see your opponent play there, but maybe with a play like BY and then a pickup of an I, you can score 50 next turn, retain your blank, and bingo the following turn. It's going to be impossible to lose a game if you score 50 and then bingo after you're already ahead by 80. So that's an intriguing option, but there are a number of intriguing options here for Brad. He doesn't want to play BY to just play two consonants. THY or SHY in different spots allow him to play 3 consonants. This is a challenging turn, and it's one of those where I don't think I can tell you what's right, but I can probably tell you what's wrong. There's a couple bad plays that you shouldn't do.
Yeah, if it doesn't look to me like there is anything where he could justify burning the blank to get the H or the Y underneath the O, play QI and just play something for 55. And now If he had something like that, it might be an option worth considering, but I don't see anything that accomplishes that.
Yeah, not quite there, but very close to a play like Smith, which would score 60 points, even burning the blank. And I think at that score, it's justifiable to do it. Brad opting to do what I think makes a lot of sense here: THY and Tart. You do want to, I think, play 3 consonants if you can. That all not guarantees, but strongly increases the odds that you do pull at least one vowel. Breaking up the TH combination, not something you want to do, but something you must do in order to play 3 consonants off. So THY, the play from Brad, he's likely to bingo next turn with BLS blank as his leave. And AEIOOTZ for Charles. He's going to score some points this turn, but he needs to make sure he scores points in a way that keeps his chances alive as long as possible. It's really easy to drop ooze next to lendings, OOZE and EL for 35. But you really need to think about the construction of the board. It's rather closed right now. Ooze gives your opponent a big score. So I think you have to spend a lot more time here. And unfortunately, Charles, at just 10 minutes left, is running out of time. But this is the play that I was hoping to see him make. AZO, 34 points. EIOT is plenty bingo prone, and you're creating not one, but 2 bingo lines. One on the left side of that A, the other on the right side. Very hard for Brad to block both unless he has the crucial L tile to front hook AZO. Now, we know that he does, and Charles is about to get crushed here. But a nice attempt. Good thought there from Charles for sure. Brad is going to make a decision here. He has 2 playable bingos. Each scores 79 points. Each plays down the 3rd column on this board. So he's unable to capitalize on the triple word square to the left side. No playable bingos there, but playable bingos on the right side. Won't say what those are yet, but the 79 pointers may not be the best option for him. He can just play Flab, FLAB, and Lazo, LAZO. That's 49. So, Mike, 79 points, slam the door shut, or 49 points, hold the blank, and try to win this game by 200. Do you have a preference here?
Well, so Flab does a better job of preventing counter bingos. If he plays the bingos on column C, he still leaves the line open to potentially have a counter bingo on column A on the triple, which would basically still leave the game as a 30 to 40 point game. After Flab, you have a 90-point lead. There's really only one good set of bingo lines open on the right side, and you still have the blank. So I'm kind of liking Flab in this situation.
I'm a huge fan of Flab. The 2 bingos that play FAIBLES or fibulas both play to the right side of Lazo. I just don't like what they do to the shape of the board. They expose a number of floaters to allow 8s. They keep that triple word line open, the first column. After a play like fibulas, if you get bingo bangoed on, you are still in some trouble. So I really like the idea of Flab here. Hold on to that blank, take some control. It's going to be really hard to lose this game after Flab. You would have to draw vowels for like 3 straight turns, and there aren't enough vowels in the bag to draw vowels for 3 straight turns. So I think Flab is a really good idea. And it looks like we're going to see Fib instead. I think maybe Brad just whiffed on the front hook.
That's entirely possible, and that's going to be a unfortunate swing in this game because Charles has finally drawn a reasonable rack and is going to be able to bingo in multiple spots.
Yeah, great pull finally from Charles. So bingos do happen in South Bend. EHIORST is going to give him Toshier, Shorty, Hoister, Harriets. And he's just got to choose which of those he likes best. This bingo is going to score 80 points for Charles, which will put him ahead by 6. But in this game, in this situation, going ahead by 6, you're still the underdog. Because while you do take the lead, it's your opponent's turn. There's 2 unseen blanks. You're still in danger if you're Charles. So I think you need to choose the bingo here. that creates the most life on this board. You're still the underdog. You've got to keep things wide open. I'd be looking probably to play shorty here and get that S up in space to try to keep options open. Maybe Toshier instead, but want to keep the S up in space.
That all sounds reasonable to me.
Does Collins have BAE yet? I know they added that to NWL, and I know Collins is getting the new words like next month. I think Collins has BAE, right?
Looks like it to me, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. So then Shorty and BAE or Toshier and BAR, I think those are options, but I think those are the best ones. Maybe Shorty and FE for 79. Put that S way up in space. I don't know to what degree Charles feels like he's the underdog here, but if you feel like your odds are long, I think Shorty and FE the play. But I think if you feel like you can win this one in the end game, Toshier or Shorty in this spot, probably the move. So this is what Charles opts to do here. Toshier, 80 points, capitalizing on the blunder by Brad, and he's launched himself back into this game. But another good rack for Brad, AAELLS blank, is likely going to lead to a Brad counter bingo here, assuming he sees them. There are plenty of options available to him, though none of them are all that good. Whoa, none of them are good.
Yeah, we have something like seawalls from the S of Tashier for 64. We have something like sailable on the right side, hooking EL for it's like 70, but throwing an S into the 7th slot of a triple line with another blank unseen. Though if you're going to do that, this is the time to do it when your opponent's rack is completely random.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now that he's played 7 tiles, I'd take a good long look at that unseen pool if I were Brad and try to figure out, is it good? Is it bad? Is it terrible? If it's utterly terrible, maybe you can make a play like Saleable and EL on the right side of the board. But with the lead you're about to take, there's absolutely no reason to expose that S in a triple line like that. If Brad sees seawalls here, SEAWALLS from the S in Toshier, I think that is easily the top bingo available to him. But it's tough to spot bingos, especially when you're on stream, especially when you've been traveling all day yesterday to get to this place. So seawalls to play for Brad, but will he see it or will he make one of the more aggressive and less defensive bingos? Huge turn for Brad. These are the moments where, as a commentator, you have very little to add. You just sit and wait. It's kind of like in golf. You just got to watch the guy make his 12-foot putt or not. You just got to see if Brad spots the right bingo or if he spots the wrong one. And oh my goodness, what has Charles found? Is that Markless? Is that good? No. Oh man.
I was thinking about that too, but there's only one 8 in 8-letter bingo possible with Charles's rack, which I will momentarily leave as a puzzle for the audience, as Seawalls it looks like is coming down.
Yeah, wow, great job, Brad. So shaking off the blunder last turn and coming back with a killer play here. Again, Seawall's far better than any other bingo available to Brad this turn, and he has spotted it. Well done. That's going to greatly increase his winning chances. So good job, Brad. Shake it off. Make the right play next turn. And back to Charles. AEKLMRS. As Mike just said, there's only one possible 8 in this rack. That would need an exposed O, and the word would be larksome. That's not an option now, and Charles is going to have to claw his way back into this game the old-fashioned way. Unseen pool is a little bit interesting here. Oh, it looks like Charles is challenging Seawalls, or maybe it's F. I wonder what the blank was designated. Let's see if I can get word from our production team. Make sure that this blank is indeed an F, or is indeed a W. But yeah, we'll see. I expect this is just going to be 5 extra points for Brad.
Yeah. Which, again, with the comparatively lighter challenge penalty, it's pretty much worth it to challenge anything you're not 100% certain of.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when this feels like a game over bingo. You've got to feel your chances. It's not game over, but you've got to feel your chances drying up if you're Charles here. So that makes a ton of sense. Go ahead and take the shot. And now he's got to figure out what to do to open this board up. There's really just 2 opportunities to bingo in the column second most to the right and third most to the right. You can bingo and make 2-letter words on the left side of lendings, like EL or something. You can also bingo down to the D in ground in, perhaps down to the N in ground in. But one of the nice things about seawalls is because it ends in consonant, 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 it's incredibly hard for Charles to bingo back up on top of that. If you're Brad, you also don't have to worry about the exposed T and Toshier very much because those bingos score so little that with your 63-point lead, you're probably still just going to win the game, even if Charles bingo's there. So Charles has to be trying to look to bingo on the right side of this board, but he needs to create another opportunity or Brad can just block and then the game is over. Plays
Right.
like Yelp or its anagram YLKE play at the bottom of this board, but those to me are trap plays. You never win the game after you do that. Your opponent can just no-brainer block and coast to victory. What do you see here, Mike? How would you approach this turn?
So I would be looking to come up with a play that goes from the top center triple down to the L in seawalls, which would score some points and also open up a new set of lines, as you said, for exactly the reasons you described. Looking at our handy dandy program here, something like the Collins only Merle, I think Maerl, would score reasonably for 24 and keep KRS, which is not ideal, and Yerk is going to come down.
It's Yerk, Y-E-R-K, as opposed to Yelk. I suppose, yeah, he has the case L, and there's 1 R still to be drawn. I also like that Charles has held on to the A here. He had the final A in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the last of a tile, you always want to keep it. There's no way you're going to duplicate it. And you can set up opportunities for yourself. You can set yourself up with it in a way your opponent doesn't have it. So I really think holding the A here was a great choice. It's easy, I think, to play MAKE down to the E and C walls, making TA and OK. But I think holding that A is going to be very important long term in this game. All right. Well, Brad has drawn the big play down to the L that Charles wanted to make last turn. Excel is 45 points, but that's sort of a paradoxical play if you're Brad. You want to start closing this board down, and instead Scrabble gives you a 45-pointer down to the L. It's a hard play to make, but when it puts you ahead by 75, even in that worst case scenario where you do get hit back with the bingo 2 or from the E, you're probably still going to win that end game. So I think Excel is a play that, while it looks bad on its face, it's just too good to pass up. What say you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and this is where the number of tiles in the bag becomes important, because as it stands right now, there's 19 tiles unseen, which means there are 12 in the bag. Excel plays off 4, bringing it down to 8. A bingo would bring it down to 1, leaving you a 1 in the bag endgame to solve. I'd be much more comfortable with Excel if there were 11 tiles in the bag, because then after you play off 4, and in the worst case scenario where Charles bingos, the bag is empty and you can play a pure endgame. Having said that, there's not much in the way of other options. There's no really good other way to score with the X here.
And you don't want to get bogged down by this X and be forced, have some inflexibility into the end game because of it. Potentially, the X could score some big points with that double word square between the O in Toshier and the E in Seawalls. But that's a spot that's a lot easier to hit with an A. There's only one of those. So I think, yeah, you have to pull the trigger on Excel here. Score 45, hold your breath. Even if you get bingoed, you're probably all right. But yeah, you might have to solve a one in the bag end game on the first game of a 31 game tournament on stream. That's a challenging situation. This is another option here. It looks like he's opting to block as much as he can. Exec is going to block bingos down to the D and ground in, going to block bingos down the N column on the left side of lending. So he's playing some defense here. He may get stacked on top by bingos sometimes, but a good idea here from Brad.
Yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to pass up a lot of points for defense purposes, but as I think it was the late Lester Schoenbrunn who once said this to me. At some point, you have to stop trying to bingo and start trying to win the game.
I like that. I think that's advice a lot of newer players could hear as well, need to hear as well, because I think a lot of people play a little bit too much to bingo and a little bit less to win the game in this particular instance. In any case, Excel probably what I would have done, but exec going to put Charles in a bit of a bind here. AILMOSU, and he's got to be looking at this unseen pool and scratching his head quite a bit. EEIIITTT and a blank in there. If you're Charles too, you have to approach these situations with the sense of optimism. If the blank is on Brad's rack, you've already lost. So there's no reason to even think about those situations. You have to assume that the blank is in the bag. And then you have to try to figure out, you have to make a plan. I'm going to draw the blank next turn, and then what? And fortunately for Charles, we know that the blank is indeed in the bag. It's not on Brad's rack. But yeah, okay, so he's going to reach in and grab it. He might have life in this game after his last play. AUMIL, and it looks like he's been put on hold as well. AUMIL is going to draw the last 4 tiles out of the bag. So that's going to give Brad perfect knowledge. No, I'm sorry. It's going to leave 4 in the bag. I'm wrong. AUMIL leaves 4 in the bag and puts Brad in a tough situation, as now the line through the A at the top of the board, lines through the E and the C and exec, potentially bingos through the M in Amil. There are quite a few things that Charles could do, and Brad's not going to be able to address all of them in one fell swoop here. Oh boy, buckle up. Depending on the draw from Charles, this could be good.
Actually, he might be able to. I'm seeing pungent through that U, which doesn't that just stop everything?
I think 9s from the C to the D could happen, but otherwise, yeah, pungent seems to address nearly every possibility at once. Pungent, hold your breath. That seems like probably what you have to do here.
Looks like after much consideration, the play has been accepted. I think because Brad saw the possibility of pungent to, again, address 95% of the issues.
Oh my God! Charles has an out bingo. Oh my God. This is a word I don't know. He doesn't know. It's absolutely ridiculous, but he's actually done it. Pungent only loses to sandwich bingos from the C to the D or from the E to the N. And Charles has actually drawn a bingo from the E to the N. This is a play that I think only like 4 Scrabble players on the planet see, because most people don't study 9-letter bingos. But this is incredible. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He has a T, not an I. I'm lying. I'm completely lying. He has much better bingos. He has isolate, making execs and overlapping lendings 3 times to win the game. So he still does have a bingo, and he still can win the game right here. What a miracle! He's got to spot the crazy sneaky fit of isolate and execs and everything else. But wow, mill, go into the bag, draw the blank, and draw a bingo that fits on this board. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the time pressure we mentioned earlier becoming an issue, although given the score, he can actually afford to go a couple of minutes over and still have the bingo score enough to win. For those unaware, it is not a chess style system where when your flag falls, you just lose. It is a 10-point penalty per minute or portion thereof you go over, but that is not going to be an issue as Charles finds isolate and pulls out victory from the jaws of defeat.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, look at this. He's found it in a time crunch under 2 minutes. And I'm sure he was looking at the C and the D, and then all of a sudden was like, hang on now. Grabbing a victory from the jaws of defeat, putting out a Hail Mary, AUMIL. I've got to draw the blank. I've got to draw some good stuff. I've got to draw a bingo that fits. And he does it all. Wow. That has to feel absolutely devastating for Bradley in round 1 of this tournament, and absolutely incredible for Charles. What a wild ending to this one. After the 77 for isolate and the points from Brad's rack, Charles comes out on top, 449 to 404. That was an awesome way to start this tournament.
Yeah. If we're going to get 30 more games like that, then stay tuned, everybody. You will not want to miss it.
Yeah, this is top-level Scrabble, folks. Every game is like this, I promise. Now, maybe that's not quite true, but man, this one back and forwards until the very end. And a bad beat for Brad to give this one to Charles. Oh, I'm having fun.
Yeah, and it's also a example of pungent is 100% the right play, and it just didn't work out in this case. You can leave your opponent exactly one spot to win the game, and if they have the right tiles, there's just nothing you can do about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, world champion David Eldar in the chat said play pungent and hold your breath and hope nothing bad happens. And when you got a world champion agreeing with the plan of sequence or the plan of attack you took, like sometimes you just have bad beats in Scrabble. I will say, I think the whiff of the front hook lazo on the fibula's turn was a huge turning point in this game. I think it could have been basically the dagger in this one. But Charles taking advantage of the small blunder and sneaking this one out, that was incredible. Never give up, I think, is what we've learned here.
And we see a note from Charles to us. He only reviewed the CSW force 3 weeks ago.
So that's where the phony 4 early on in the game came from. I'd completely forgotten about that. So thanks for the reminder, Charles. Now I have more things to roast you about. As we let the gents get their paperwork done after this banger of a game 1, I do want to give a quick plug to Charles, who does some Twitch streaming of his own. His Twitch handle is Ancient Cosmographer. I'll let someone spell that out in chat for me. But Charles does some streaming. He does Aerolith, he plays games, he does some other stuff. If you like watching Scrabble on the internet, he's certainly a name to remember, and would appreciate if you give him a little follow or subscribe or whatever the things you do on Twitch are. Come hang out with him. He's a really cool dude. He and his twin brother Thomas are 2 really cool dudes in general. There we go. Thanks for dropping that in chat. We have 30 more games of Scrabble, or potentially even more here, depending on how our best of 5 finals goes at the end of this. But my goodness, we might have had the game of the tournament right here in game 1. That was stellar.
And for Charles, pulling out a win like that in game one is always a great way to start a tournament. And if you're Brad, you just have to say it's one game out of 31, and there's plenty of time to make up the ground.
I'm going to say this probably 20 times over the course of the weekend, but Nationals is the long game. Nationals is not about finding the flashy 9 one time. Nationals is about going in and for 10 to 15 turns a game times 31 games, making the best tactical move every turn, not blundering any of them or blundering as few as possible, and trying to keep your mental game in order. Bad stuff always happens in Scrabble. You will get tripled on sometimes. Your opponent will draw 4 straight bingos sometimes. But in a 31 game tournament, you just have to shake it off, take a little walk in the hallway, and then wash your hands of it and go try to kick ass again the next game. You got to do your best. That's a tough way to start a Nationals for Brad, but it's a very long tournament. Keep your head up, Brad.